所以下面呢，我们就正式的邀请KidZania 首任全球教育总监 Ger Graus 做一个主题发言。他的主题的报告题目是启发孩子社会流动性创新。下面请大家以热烈的掌声欢迎 Dr. Ger Graus. Thank you. Welcome to the podium. We have to control our time, so 15 minutes. 15 minutes. There will be last minute queue at the end. Thank you.
I'll try this. Ciao Shang Hao. Good morning. It's nice. It's really nice to be here. And I wanted to do two things. I'll do some thanking first, but there's lots of people with cameras there, and I have a 12-year-old daughter. And my daughter said, when I told her that I was going to China, she said, will you take some photographs when you're speaking? So I promised to do that. So I'm just going to do that now. So can you wave? And can you wave? Thank you. That's a very happy daughter I've got now. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the International Positivity in Education Network. Oh, was anybody waving and I didn't take a picture? Was that what it was? The International Positivity in Education Network, IPEN, for the invitation to be here. Can we do the next slide, please? Thanks. And the next one. Thank you. Which means the video.
I'm one of the few female pilots. I've been to America, Spain, and I love every minute of it. Air traffic control has cleared us for takeoff. Okay, let's go. People, property, and postcodes. I call it the 3 Ps. Hello, Mrs. Smith. How can I help you?
I have won lots of awards. When I was a school child, I was directing my school play. It's not a job, it's a calling.
A Romeo. A Romeo. They see surgery as an art form. It's vital to keep a cool head. Scalpel? I'm a bit of a petrol head. I could have been a doctor, but I prefer cars. What's not to love?
And we are live in 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, and welcome to the 9 o'clock news.
KidZania London, a city made just for kids aged 4 to 14.
So that's what we do. I wanted to talk about children a little bit today, and I wanted to talk about children as individuals in what is a pretty global and fast world. The reason I wanted to do that is because I increasingly hear that Generation Z live in a global world, and I don't believe in a generation, I believe in individual children. I have a 12-year-old, I have a 19-year-old, and I have a 21-year-old. And what concerns me and us as part of the work we do is that we're starting to talk about segments and cohorts, and that we don't talk about individuals and the possible. So try to unpack that. What KidZania does is very simple. It's a large city, it's designed to empower and inspire children. It offers real life careers awareness, role play. There are about 40 KidZanias globally, either operational or planned. We opened the first one in 1999. We've had 68 million visitors so far. Do the next one, please, thanks. And children are in charge. Children choose what they do. So the most important sentence on that slide is the last one. You can choose whichever job you do, but the most important part, very simply, is that grown-ups are there to be seen and not heard. What we wondered then was, if we took all our visitors and we looked at how they behaved, and then we looked at their background, where they come from, how old they are, whether they're boys or girls, what their ethnicity is, whether they're rich or poor. We wondered whether their choices would be different. So we tried it with our partners Havas in London, and we took 61,000 children aged 4 to 14, and we analysed what their first choices were. And we thought what that might teach us was how to begin to think about children in a more individual way, rather than a number, in a way that recognizes a child's background in all its complexities, that gives us information that we can share with other educators, including schools, so that we can begin to plan not to deliver the curriculum, but we begin to plan to develop the child. It's a big job. So far we've done the analysis on London. We are about to do the analysis in all the other KidZanias globally. And when we've done that, we will keep reporting our findings. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. The charts, the writing's probably a little bit small, but it'll be published on the website. And essentially, it will come as no surprise that some of the things we found were almost set in stone, particularly around gender. Girls would choose what we predicted they would choose. Boys would choose what we more or less predicted they would choose. It got more complex if you begin to look at a child's background. Then children from a poorer background, girls from a poorer background, would choose different activities to girls from more affluent backgrounds. The most surprising finding for us was that the scene was set at the age of 4. So by the age of 4, children had made up their minds where they belonged. So let me use an example. We have a real live aeroplane in KidZania London and in all the other KidZanias, and there are 2 activities. One activity is cabin crew, and one activity is a pilot activity. At the age of 4, the cabin crew activity is 70% girls, 30% boys. At the age of 4, the pilot activity is 70% boys, 30% girls. If children come from a background that is poor, so the 20% children who come from the socio-economically most challenged backgrounds, they don't choose the aeroplane activities at all. So there are certain things very clearly set from an early age. The disturbing thing is that despite government investment into all sorts of schemes, at the age of 14, that picture hasn't changed. It remains 70-30, 70-30. In our systems, there are a number of things wrong with that. One is, when children choose at the age of 14, in what is a very large sample, in our education system, we have decided not to talk or engage with children about their hopes, their futures, and about the possible until they are 14. We wait for another 10 years until we as grown-ups think it is the right thing to do to begin to address that. It's completely wrong. It's completely out of date. There's something else that's quite disturbing. Almost all the girls, regardless of their background, regardless of their age, chose activities that are below their age. Almost all the boys, regardless of their background, regardless of their age, chose activities above their age, from the age of 4 to the age of 14. And in discussions with head teachers as to where does this come from, you have to begin to ask some questions. What happens with children from birth to the age of 4? You have to begin to ask the question whether education is more than schooling. I think we would probably agree that the answer is yes. And then I witnessed something in a playground near Manchester where I live, and what I witnessed was 2 families with very young children in a playground where there were climbing frames, and almost unreservedly the parents would say to the little girls, be careful. And almost unreservedly, the parents would say to the little boys, go on. And you begin to wonder, don't you? So we need to begin to step back, know our children better, share that information with schools and beyond, think about education not as schooling, but as schooling as part of a much wider agenda that is education. And I think the report for us grown-ups says, must try better, must try harder, must try more appropriately. Let's have a look at the next slide. So what does it tell us? Our gender gap. Why are girls left behind? Why are there those differences? Why are we more encouraging towards boys? Who are the key influencers if this happens at the age of 4? Is it television? Is it the media? Is it parents? Is it everybody? Is it perhaps that every child is everybody's responsibility? And how does our education system need to reinvent itself? Do the next one, please. Children can only aspire to what they know exists, is my phrase. So one of the jobs of us educators, and I mean not schoolers, but educators, surely has to be that we enable children to widen horizons, to widen their own horizons, that we provide an education that allows children to be inspired, to aspire, to dream, and at the same time to keep checking in with the real world. The data indicates that life experience influences the first activity children choose. There's a word of warning with this as well, because I think what we tend to do as grown-ups, and certainly what academics tend to do, they treat children as one-dimensional. Let's just stop doing that. This is not about boys and girls. This is really crudely and bluntly put about little people who happen to be boys or girls, and on top of that happen to be rich or poor, happen to be black or white, happen to be purple or pink. We are multidimensional, and let's make no mistake about it. The analysis in the United Kingdom has already shown, the analysis in Mexico is beginning to show, and the analysis in Kuala Lumpur, our next one, is beginning to show something very simple. If you are, for example, a girl, if you are poor, and if you are, in the UK terms, non-white, you are seriously disadvantaged. Much more so than if you are just a girl. I think spade a spade is a good expression, and it's something that we need to do a little more of. Children from schools in low deprivation areas are more likely to choose activities at the top of that chart. And children for high deprivation areas choose them towards the right. I know a school in Sheffield, an area near Manchester where I live. The school is in a very deprived area. There is a 99% chance, if you're a 9-year-old girl in that school, that you will choose either the hairdressers or the supermarket as your first activity. There is nothing wrong with that at all. If you know and are confident with all the other choices around, and you then decide to choose the supermarket or the hairdressers. We need to widen those horizons. How are we going to do this rather than write another policy paper and talk a lot? How do we practically begin to change those things now? Hope, aspiration, happiness. My very good friend Carlo Rinaldi, who is one of the co-founders of the Reggio Emilia approach, said to me not that long ago, can you please make sure that the possible goes onto the curriculum? And maybe we need to put the possible onto the curriculum again. The good news in terms of our findings is that education is the answer, not just schooling. We've got to stop pushing everything to schools that they will sort things for us. Education is the answer. When children come from an area that is severely deprived, if they happen to have the great fortune to go to a good school, their chances, surprise, surprise, are significantly enhanced. Let's just see if we all became good educators, how much could we enhance those children's chances. Can we do the next one, please? Thank you. Our current system primes children for a working world that belongs to yesterday. We should really look at that and stop doing it. When I ask, and I speak to children every day, when I ask children, why do you go to school? And their answer is, because you make me. I don't think that's a very good answer, and I don't think that's a motivating factor. Maybe we need to look at why questions and why answers. What can we take out of this research is, and I only list family, schools and government, there are communities, there is industry, there are others with responsibilities. But there are jobs to do for each, and there are extended activities to do for each. What is the situation of the family and what can they do? Where are schools currently and what can they what have they got and what can they offer? And what about governments? The sad thing is that, I'm sure it's the same in this country because it seems to be almost all over the world, August is examination month. Do you know that? Because we get examination results almost everywhere in August. It is when our children become numbers. It's when you are either good or not good enough. I think we need to go back to seeing children as children and base the education system on them and not on the numbers that we think would be right. Who should we be petitioning? We should talk to the private sector. Every year, in 2 weeks' time, in the next 2 weeks, in the United Kingdom, all the newspapers will tell us that however good the examination results are, or bad, industry will tell us that they're not quite good enough. Well, industry needs to come off the fence and help us make it better then. Industry needs to invest in its future workforce in the broadest possible sense, not just write the checks. Do it meaningfully. Why can we not have work experience for 6-year-olds? Was that a few health and safety people fainting in the background? Why can't we have work experience for 6-year-olds? Why can't we answer why questions? Next one, please. I thought this was terrifying. On the left-hand side, this is a UK thing, but it's for all of us to think about. On the left-hand side is probably the current model. And if you think of social mobility as a move upwards, you've got a chance on the left. There are some people who are predicting that future societies might look like an hourglass on the right. And that would mean that you are either included or excluded, and the funnel to get from one to the other seems to me to be rather thin. Private sector and educators need to work hand in glove. We need to create an education revolution and nurture an education evolution. We need to encourage our children to stay curious. We need to think that if you only read the books that everyone else is reading, you can only think what everyone else is thinking. Surely the best thing about all of us is our uniqueness. Then why on earth can we not recognize that within our education system? It doesn't make any sense. We are putting together... Sorry, what's next? We'll be working... Can we just go back? Sorry. We're putting together a global think tank, which we'll see in a minute. We are going to develop more research. We want to do it quicker. We want to share it. We want people to email us. We want people to get involved in this. We are not the gatekeepers to ideas, but we want to collectively begin to make that better. We need to move towards building a creative approach to social mobility that includes the children rather than excludes them. There are a few friends and people we've put together who are helping us think globally. That group will get bigger. We've only just started. We're desperately looking for parent representatives if you're looking into this. We'll do the next one. We've got some other friends who are helping us, advising us. We have to try collectively to make a difference. We are the people who've messed it up so far. We should now also be the people who try and get it right. We owe that to my 12-year-old, and you owe that to your children and to everybody else's. So why don't you just join us and have a go? I think that sounds perfectly reasonable. Thank you very much. It's been a privilege to be here.
Thank you so much.